Revealed. The sinister truth behind this 1891 family photo, a terrifying sixth figure exposed. Sarah Thompson jolted awake, the cold grip of dawn barely easing the fog of sleep. She rubbed her eyes and glanced at the clock. 5 a.m. The day stretched ahead like a shadow, long and suffocating. With a grunt, she swung her legs over the side of the bed, each muscle protesting as she stood. The early morning air was as stale as the last remnants of her cold coffee on the table. She couldn't remember the last time she tasted a warm cup. A glance at the couch brought a small flicker of warmth. Her 6-year-old daughter, Lily, nestled deep in her colorful blanket, a patchwork comfort made from scraps of fabric that held more than mere warmth. They held memories, stories from a life filled with laughter and joy. But as Sarah moved quietly around their cramped, cluttered apartment, an uneasiness unfurled inside her, whispering like a voice drenched in shadow. Today, she would work 2 shifts at the diner, the endless grind of survival. But something hung in the air, thick like the fog that rolled in from the woods beyond town, something about to unravel. Hours later, the rain fell in a relentless curtain. The attic beckoned to her with the memories of her late grandmother. Sarah only hesitated briefly. She needed distraction from the humdrum dread. Cracking open the worn hatch, she climbed the creaking stairs, the scent of dust and old wood swirling around her like a forgotten memory. She pried open a trunk vastly older than she was, revealing sepia-toned photographs, some of her ancestors, faces strong yet somber, their past stretching back like a tethered rope, pulling at her curiosity. But then one photo stopped her heart, a family portrait from 1891. The faces were blurred echoes of her bloodline, and lurking behind them was a 6th figure, shadows wrapped around it like a cloak. Its eyes brimmed with a hunger that made her skin crawl. She shivered, the urge to turn away, battling with insatiable curiosity. But no, she had to know. Sarah took to the streets after that, connecting with neighbors over awkward cups of bad coffee. But there, in subtle glances and thin lips pressed into tight lines, she sensed a growing wariness each time she mentioned her grandmother or the photo. Voices dropped to hushed whispers, and as she connected the strands of her lineage with the tragedies that followed them, families cursed, children lost, it was suffocating. Tonight, paranoia clawed at her as she left the diner, the dark woods surrounding her like a shroud. Each gust of wind seemed to carry echoing whispers from the branches. The branches looked like gnarled hands reaching out, beckoning her closer. And then she saw a flash of something lurking just beyond her focus, just out of sight, but heavy with malice. Panic hit her gut, her heart pounding as she hastened her steps, desperate to reach the fragile safety of her apartment. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The nights grew longer, shadows deeper. Light bulbs flickered violently at the slightest movement, and a persistent sense of dread wrapped around Sarah, choking out any remaining sense of security. Lily's laughter was replaced with fears she couldn't voice. Jasper, their fluffy gray cat, hissed at unseen foes, darting under furniture every time a door creaked. Then one day, it got worse. Old town documents surfaced, testifying to a dark folklore lurking in the town's history, a predator masquerading as a neighbor, hunting families just like hers. It all intertwined with the very blood running in her veins. Fear squirmed within her, squeezing her heart as she pieced it together. Could the figure in the photograph be the key to breaking the cycle? Would she face the lurking entity or let it swallow them whole? Sarah's breath quickened as the shadows whispered and the stifling air felt electric. As she clutched Lily's small hand, cold dread seeped deeper into her bones, and the lost laughter of her grandmother echoed through the silence of the night. The question hung thick in the air: would they succumb to the haunting legacy or unearth the truth buried beneath layers of their own history? Sarah sat on the edge of her bed, staring into the growing dark. The clock ticked ominously, each second echoing in the silence. Lily was asleep, but the shadows in the corners of the room seemed alive. They twisted and swirled, taunting her with memories she would rather forget. There was no comfort in the family portrait that now dominated her thoughts. The sixth figure was haunting her dreams. What was it? A warning? A curse? A piece of her family's dark legacy? She felt it in her bones, a pressing weight that begged her to dig deeper. But at what cost? The town's whispered warnings echoed in her mind. Leave it alone, they had said, but she couldn't. Not now. She crept out of bed and flicked on the light. The bulb flickered stubbornly, casting long shadows. Her heart raced as she rounded the couch, Jasper stiffening at her feet. His hackles were raised, a low hiss escaping him once more. Sarah paused, her breath catching something felt different tonight, as if the air vibrated with anticipation. Rubbing her temples, she tried to shake off the feeling, the need to know blending with fear. She approached the attic door again. The temptation was unbearable. What else might be hidden up there? Secrets that could unravel this legacy? The seams of her sanity stretched as she opened the door, climbing the stairs slowly. Each creak beneath her feet echoed like the distant voice of warning. The attic greets her with stale air, thick with dust. The trunk sat ominously in the corner, drawing her in like a moth to a flame. With trembling hands, she pulled it open again, revealing a jumble of items that seemed mundane, yet somehow sinister under the dim light. Among the photographs she had combed through earlier, another item caught her eye: an old, yellowed envelope. The faintest hint of her grandmother's handwriting was visible on the front, beckoning her closer. She opened it with caution, her heart pounding as if trying to break free of its confines. Inside, a letter revealed a family secret she could hardly believe. Her grandmother wrote about an ancient ritual passed down through bloodlines. A ritual intended to keep a lurking evil at bay, an evil bound to the sixth figure in the family portrait. The words twisted her stomach into knots. Something was stirring, something connected to her ancestors that had awakened. Suddenly, the air went cold. A shadow darted past the window, catching her breath and making her heart race even faster. Sarah turned sharply, dread pooling in her stomach. Was the photo truly just a ghost from the past, or was it a signal, a harbinger of something much darker? A fleeting memory of Lily's laughter rang in her ears, now tinged with a haunting melancholy. Sarah knew she had to protect her daughter, but how could she protect them both from something that had been haunting their bloodline for generations? Her resolve hardened. It was time to confront whatever it was, whatever the truth might reveal. She had to see the woods, the heart of this evil. But would it be worth the cost? As she stepped outside into the bitter night, the trees loomed like dark sentinels, their branches clawing at the sky. Something twitched in the corner of her vision. She felt it watching her, just beyond the reach of the light. "Mommy!" Lily's voice called from the apartment, small and fragile in the silence. Sarah hesitated, fear surging anew. Would they face this legacy together, or would it tear them apart? The darkness in the woods stretched endlessly, waiting for her. And as she took one determined step forward, the real question gripped her heart. What awaited her in the shadows? Would unearthing the truth free them, or doom them all? As Sarah stepped into the chilling embrace of the night, the air thickened, drawing tight around her like a noose. The trees whispered ancient secrets, their limbs snapping like fingers beckoning her toward the woods. She glanced back at the apartment, the faint light spilling from the window like a beacon. "Mommy!" Lily's voice rang again, a fragile thread woven from innocence. It pulled at Sarah's core, but she felt the encroaching darkness tugging at her heels. She took a breath, steeling herself, and moved further into the shadows. Each footfall was a step away from safety, a decision made in desperation. The wind howled now, weaving between the branches, a mournful wail that made the hairs on her neck stand up. Sarah felt it again, that chilling sense of being watched, as if the woods were alive with rapt attention. She pushed on, the ground uneven beneath her, the night oppressive. The trees twisted above her like angry spirits, blocking out the moonlight. How far had she gone? The familiar paths of her childhood had vanished, replaced by a sinister thicket that rattled with unseen life. In the distance, she spotted a flicker. Was that a light? Heart racing, she trudged toward it, hoping it signaled safety or perhaps a clue. But as she neared, her anticipation turned to dread. The light pulsed like a heartbeat, golden and tainted, and she could see movement around its shapes that flitted and twisted just beyond her sight. She halted, the air turning thick as a fog rolled in, curling around her like tendrils of smoke. Faint laughter echoed out, jarring her thoughts. It was childlike, chilling, and filled with a memory she couldn't reach. Lily, she whispered, panic wrapping its fingers around her throat. But the laughter faded into something darker, gravelly voices chiming in unison. Chanting? She strained to hear, a panic building in the space between her breaths. The voices grew louder, filling her head as whispers of her grandmother's warnings echoed back. Do not awaken the past. It wants your blood with renewed urgency. Sarah pushed forward, fear giving her strength. The light blazed before her, revealing a clearing surrounded by the gnarled roots of the trees, their trunks like twisted hands clawing at the earth. In the center lay an altar, stones stacked precariously, adorned with remnants of past rituals, bones, flowers, a mound of dark earth. What had she stumbled into? Gathering her courage, she stepped closer, throat dry. The air was thick with incense and baleful energy, each inhalation a weighted reminder of the horror that lay hidden in her family's past. Suddenly, a figure stepped into the light, its face obscured by a hood. Sarah's heart thundered. The figure lifted a shaking hand, pointing directly at her. Your blood, the price must be paid. Stumbling back, dread washed over her in waves. She was trapped in the midst of something she couldn't comprehend. This was no longer just about protecting Lily. This was about her lineage, her past, and a sixth figure that now felt more real than ever, lurking just out of reach. As she turned to run, the ground beneath her bucked, roots snapping like whips. The shadows danced in a frenzy, and a sound erupted behind her, a chorus of moans rising like an angry tide. Her breath came in frantic gasps as darkness swarmed her vision, eclipsing thought and reason. Would she escape, or had she crossed an unseen line? Deep inside, a chilling realization settled. The real nightmare was just beginning. Panic drove Sarah's legs, propelling her deeper into the forest. The underbrush snagged at her clothes, roots clawing at her ankles, trying to hold her back like a devil's grasp. She could hear the murmurs now, a cacophony of childlike laughter mixed with low, guttural chants that sent primal fear spiraling through her. She could sense the figure behind her watching, waiting. It was the feeling of eyes boring in her back, the weight of intent wrapped so tightly around her that each breath came as a laborious task. Lily, she screamed again, but her voice was swallowed by the hungry darkness. The haunting calls of her daughter flickered through her mind like a cruel torch, leading her deeper into a chasm of despair. Ahead, the flickering light pulsed with a life of its own, drawing her in with promises of answers. But she hesitated, fear chaining her feet. What if the light was a lure, a trap set by the very evil she had sought to escape? No, she muttered fiercely, shaking her head as though she could dispel the fear. I can do this. Summoning her courage, she edged toward the source of the light. A sense of foreboding rose like bile in her throat. The altar loomed before her, a grotesque paragon of human sacrifice. The items that adorned it seemed to shiver in anticipation of her arrival. Suddenly, from behind the altar, shadows surged like a tide. She turned, and her heart dropped. More figures emerged from the gloom, cloaked and indistinct. They formed a circle, surrounding her like wolves eyeing their prey. She realized with a sickening jolt that they resembled the figure she had seen before, all of them now obscure behind masks made of twisted branches and stitched leather. "Join us," Sarah, a voice intoned, smooth yet sinister. It slithered into her mind, wrapping around her thoughts. "Become one with the past. Get away from me," she screamed, her voice echoing through the trees. But they closed in, their movements slow, purposeful, like a funeral procession for her very soul. Behind them, shadows flickered and swirled, taking form a sight that twisted her stomach. Was that Lily? A silhouette, small and pale, almost ethereal in the half-light. Sarah's heart surged with both hope and dread. "Mommy," the silhouette cried. It sounded so much like her daughter, yet so different, tinged with a darkness that chilled her bones. The ground beneath Sarah trembled, and the very air seemed to thicken, coalescing into a palpable dread. She thrashed against the dark embrace of the forest, her mind racing as she clawed back toward the flickering light, toward her daughter. "Lily!" she shouted again, this time filled with raw desperation. Without thinking, she hurtled forward, breaking the circle of cloaked figures, her focus singular. The altar was closer now, not a distance but a mere step away, a place where darkness and memory intertwined like strands of fate. As she reached toward the light, the figures lunged. Their twisted hands grasped at her, cold and unyielding. She felt her heart stop as they closed in, a wall of darkness that threatened to consume her. Just as fingers grazed her arm, Sarah's world exploded into brilliant light, and then silence. Her eyes blinked against the sudden brightness. Yet all around her, shadows danced, morphing into figures from her past, faces she recognized and faces she didn't. They drifted like ghosts, suspended between realms. Sarah stood frozen, holding her breath, the air thick with the scent of earth, and something else, something sweet yet rotten. "Mommy," the soft voice, tinged with echo, reached her from somewhere deep in the throng. Lily was close, but where? Her heart raced as she spun around, every nerve ending screaming at her to run, to fight, to know. But there was no escape from the very pulse of her own bloodline. A chilling realization hit her. This was not just a nightmare, it was a reckoning. What price would she have to pay to save her daughter? As the figures swayed closer, their chants rising once more like a tide, Sarah understood with agonizing clarity. The darkness would not let her go. Without a sacrifice, the shadows converged, closing in like a black hole, and just as she felt herself slipping away, her mother's voice echoed through her mind. "Face it, Sarah, only then can you save her." What did it mean to face it? And who would she have to become in the process? Overwhelmed, she felt the tears brimming as the figures surrounded her, their sinister whispers curling around her. "Your blood must be the bond," they crooned softly, each word laced with dread. Could she truly sacrifice herself in the shadows of her history to rescue Lily? With trembling hands, she clenched her fists, feeling the warmth of grit and resolve flow through her. In the suffocating darkness, would she find the strength to confront the truth of her lineage or surrender to the night? As the chanting surged and echoed louder, she knew time was running out. The sinister truth was now almost tangible, waiting for her decision. Was she ready to unveil the darkness lurking within? What would it cost her? No. The air was thick and suffocating, as if the shadows themselves conspired to smother her. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the heat of the light pulsing from the altar seep into her skin, igniting something within her, a mix of fear and a confusing sense of power. The masked figures closed in, their whispers flowing around her like a wicked current. She clenched her jaw, fighting back the rising tide of despair. "Face it," the voice from the shadows urged, deep and compelling, simmering with a force she couldn't ignore. The words echoed in her mind, looping endlessly. What did it mean to face it? To confront what lay waiting in the depths? She felt the tight grip of her past wrapping around her, and for a moment, doubt crept in. But the thought of Lily, trapped and helpless, ignited a blaze of determination within her. "I will not back down," she shouted, her voice breaking through the chants like a spear of light shattering darkness. The figures faltered, momentarily taken aback, and Sarah seized the moment. With a sudden rush, she lunged toward the altar, trying to grasp the light that pulsed like a heartbeat in front of her, but pain shot through her hand as if it had struck steel. She recoiled, a sharp gasp escaping her lips. They were protecting it, protecting the truth that held so much weight. "Leave her be," a voice shrieked, and suddenly the figures moved with a ferocity that shocked her. They reached for her, long, bony fingers scraping against her skin. Fear turned to anger, and she screamed, the sound breaking against the treetops like thunder. "Lily, I'm coming for you," she cried. The words tore from her throat, driven by a primal instinct that bypassed the veil of terror wrapping around her. The chanting morphed, a dissonant roll spreading among the masked figures, their faces hidden, but intent clear. She was becoming a target, not just a savior. Filling her lungs with the fetid air, she backed away to the edge of the altar, studying the faces that shifted behind the masks. They weren't inhuman. They were hauntingly familiar. Memories crawled back, their silhouettes lurking in cherished moments from her childhood, faces twisted in anguish and rage. "Help us," a soft voice wafted from the shadows, a plea tangled in a web of desperation. It was more than just Lily's voice. It was a call from generations lost, begging for redemption, for understanding. "What do you want from me?" Sarah shouted, heart racing, breath quickening with panic. "The bond your blood," they continued, their tone weaving through her thoughts. It felt like combing through tangled yarn, unearthing strands of her lineage that she had tried to forget. Then, the darkness swelled, a flood of raw emotion crashing over her. Faces appeared in the shadows, flickering like flames, and Sarah's heart sank. Her ancestors, lost souls contorted between realms, whispered their secrets, their regrets. This was her lineage. This was what she inherited. The sacrifice was not merely of flesh, but of acceptance. "Mommy," Lily's voice sliced through the tumult, fragile yet fierce. "Hold on, sweetheart. I'm coming." Panic surged through Sarah as she fought against the figures closing in. Adrenaline burst in her veins. An instinct bore down upon her choices. The altar beckoned, the light now a beacon of truth, and behind her, the chanting quickened, a rhythm matching the pounding of her heart. Could she confront the darkness? Could she embrace her past to deliver her daughter? With resolve forging into determination, she stepped closer to the altar. The glow intensified, threatening to consume her whole, and as she reached out, a sudden silence blanketed the chaos. The world paused, holding its breath, and then "Make your choice," Sarah the Shadows whispered, their voices a haunting chorus now. What would she sacrifice to save Lily? And was the price too high? The darkness shifted, looming larger, a tangible dread. What lay before her was not just an answer, but a challenge. The price of truth was imminent. Would she find the strength to face it, or would she lose herself in its depths? As the stillness shattered, revealing a path fraught with peril, Sarah knew there was no turning back. In that very moment, she felt the weight of destiny pressing down as all eyes turned toward her, echoing the question that now loomed large. What would happen when she stepped fully into the light? Sarah hesitated, fingers trembling, just inches from the radiant light that seemed to pulse with life. The shadows flickered, urging her to make a decision, to act, and yet every instinct screamed for her to retreat. The air howled, drowning out thoughts of Lily, her daughter, as piercing cries faded in the chaos, leaving behind a haunting silence that settled deeply within her. "Step into the light," they intoned in unison, their voices blending into a chilling harmony. "Accept your fate," but what did that fate entail? She shut her eyes tightly, every muscle in her body coiling with dread. The faces behind the masks were familiar, yet grotesque in their longing, as if they were a mirror reflecting the hidden truths of her life. Sins, secrets, family ties tangled into a web too intricate to unravel. Was she ready to confront the ghostly echoes of her past, Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath her feet, a low rumble that vibrated through her core. The altar flickered, shadows darting from side to side, and in that unsettling movement, she caught glimpses of Lily, her daughter's small figure, tiny yet radiant. The contrast pulled at Sarah's heart, the primal instinct to protect her child overpowering any hesitation. "I can't not without you," she yelled, desperation burning her throat dry, threatening to spill over her words. The soft breeze shifted, a whisper from the shadows wrapping around her like a snake, tightening its grip. "Your choice is here," they hissed. "To keep her safe, you must relinquish your past." Every childhood tear, every moment of shame flashed before her eyes. A past filled with hidden family tragedies, whispered arguments, a mother's broken promises, a lineage shrouded in darkness. With each passing breath, the weight of their expectations bore down harder. What if accepting her truth meant sacrificing her identity? A flash of anger surged through her. "You think I'm afraid?" Light erupted in response, pushing against the darkness, warming her chilled skin. Just as quickly, it dimmed, replaced by a deep, swallowing void that bore into her very soul. As she fought to maintain her footing, the blackness writhed, pulling at her from all directions, urging her to simply accept, to embrace the pain of her ancestors. A figure lunged forward from the shadows, a tall silhouette, larger than the others, its eyes glowing with a feral intensity. "You have what they want," it crooned, its voice smooth and seductively sinister. "The blood that binds you to us. You're one step away from revelation or annihilation." Sarah staggered back, her heart racing. "No, I want to become like you," she screamed, determination surging once more. But behind her, Lily's voice pierced through once again, trembling and frightened. "Mommy, please don't leave me." Gripped by panic, Sarah turned, fear clawing at her insides. Each masked figure knelt now, their heads bowed, whispering in strange languages, a chant she couldn't decipher but felt deep in her bones. They were not just linked to her. They were a part of something much larger, an ancient binding woven through time, handed down through generations. "So be it," an echo called out, firm and resonant. "Face your truth, or they will consume you both." In that moment, Sarah felt her body being drawn toward the altar, the light pulsing brighter, coiling around her with a magnetic pull. Could she truly face the horror that lingered in her past while desperately seeking to save her child? Frozen, the altar loomed larger, the choice becoming unbearably clear. Just as she felt herself tipping toward the light, a scream echoed from the depths of the shadows. The figures jerked violently, their heads snapping up in unison, eyes wide with terror, as something dark emerged behind them. What was that? She thought, a cold dread washing over her. And in the blink of an eye, the heartbeat of the altar skipped. Something was coming, something that didn't want to be seen by the light. Sarah's eyes widened, and she locked her gaze onto the encroaching figure, pulse hammering in her ears. Could she confront this fear, or was it already too late? The encroaching shadow smiled, a chilling smile. In that instant, she knew this would be the fight of her life. The darkness surged like a wild beast, a chaotic mass, writhing and twisting into something grotesque. Sarah felt its hunger, a palpable fear clawing at her throat, wrapping around her heart like a vice. The shadows whispered promises of despair, their chilling breath tickling her skin as she fought to hold on to her sanity. "Mommy," Lily cried again, the innocence in her voice a stark contrast to the rising tide of terror that surrounded them. The light at the altar flickered, dimming, and Sarah could taste the iron tang of panic in her mouth. One wrong step, one misplaced breath, and she would lose her child forever. The shadow lunged forward, revealing its hideous form, a conglomeration of limbs and gnarled faces, each contorted in an expression of torment. It was a sketch of nightmares, shifting before her like smoke, each feature fusing into a grotesque tapestry of agony. "You can't hide from us, Sarah," it hissed, its mouth stretching into a gaping grin that showed too many teeth. The masked figures flinched, their chants interrupted by the primal fear flooding the air. They were losing their hold, losing the power they had over Sarah. The realization sparked something within her. Determination surged, igniting her blood. "Get away from us!" Sarah shouted, her voice piercing through the thick atmosphere. She felt the warmth of the light behind her, wrapping her in courage. The figure paused, its hungry eyes narrowing, sensing the shift in her energy. "You think your defiance can shield you?" It mocked, swirling around her. "The shadows know your sins, they know your dreams. They will consume you." With each word, Sarah felt her memories lurch forward, the arguments, the tears she had suppressed, the chilling legacy of her family. What if she had always been part of this? The depth of their torment threatened to pull her under. "No!" she screamed, clenching her fists. "I own my past. You don't get to decide who I am." In that moment, something shifted. The light behind her surged forward, a daring ray sweeping through the dark like a promise of salvation. It illuminated the shadows, revealing the masked figures with their sunken eyes and desperate faces. They gasped, recoiling as if stung. The encroaching figure hesitated, losing its grip on the atmosphere. "Lily," Sarah called, her voice steadying. "Stay close to me." The child's small hand reached for her, the warmth of her touch like a lifeline. But just as she pulled her daughter toward her, another figure stepped from the depths behind the monstrous shadow. This one was different, taller, and more regal in its stance, radiating an aura of authority mixed with malevolence. A face suddenly became visible, a familiar one, but colder, distorted. "Mother," Sarah whispered, recognition flooding her veins with ice. The resemblance was undeniable, yet this entity was a husk of the person she once knew, transformed by the dark powers that had held her family captive for generations. "Yield, Sarah," the shadow version of her mother spoke, voice smooth yet edged with malevolence. "You have no hope against the truth. Don't listen to her," Lily cried, eyes wide with fear. Panic propelled Sarah forward, each heartbeat a fierce drum in her chest. She couldn't let this malignant vision of her past take hold. "I won't give in," Sarah shouted, willing her strength to manifest in each word. She felt the light, her light, somewhere deep within, slowly rising to the surface. The shadow figure recoiled, beginning to dissolve into wisps. But the command from her mother echoed in the stillness. "Make your choice. Join us or suffer the consequences." The altar flickered again, the shadows swirling with urgency, and Sarah realized she was on the brink of losing everything: her identity, her family, her very essence. "What will I become?" she whispered, dread creeping back in her heart as she stared into the eyes of her mother, both loving and terrifying. The looming question gnawed at her: was the offer of power worth the price of her soul? The air went thick with tension, each second stretching painfully. And then an eerie sound from the depths as the darkness convulsed. "Sarah, you must choose now." The darkness pulsed. The light flickered. Her moment was slipping. What was she willing to sacrifice? Even as she felt the shadows claw at her, she took a breath and stepped forward, heart pounding fiercely. In that heartbeat of doubt and desperation, she knew one thing: what she would confront next could change everything. The ground trembled beneath her as Sarah stepped forward. A rush of darkness surged, and she felt the weight of her mother's gaze, a powerful, cold reminder of unfulfilled expectations and hidden horrors. The flickering light continued to sway, threatening to shatter as the shadows recoiled and lunged forward, hungry for her acknowledgement. "Join us," her mother's doppelganger insisted, every ounce of warmth stripped from her voice. "You cannot escape your bloodline. The darkness is part of you. Accept it." The air felt thick, as if trying to fill her lungs with despair. Sarah hesitated, caught between salvation and damnation. Everything she had fought against, a family trait she never wanted, now seemed tantalizingly close as the shadows whispered enticing secrets. "Mommy, please." Lily's voice trembled, breaking through the haze. Her small frame shook, innocence mingling with fear, pulling Sarah back to her purpose. "Lily needs you," Sarah shouted, forcing her voice to rise above the whispers. She turned her focus back to her daughter, who stood clutching her doll, a threadbare savior in a storm of chaos. "Stay close," she urged, wrapping her arm protectively around Lily. But the darkness slithered forward, caressing Lily's leg as it whispered sweet lies. "You'll never escape. She belongs to us too." "No!" Sarah screamed, her voice a battle cry, breaking the suffocating silence. She felt the surge of uncertainty shift within her. It wasn't merely a struggle against external forces, but a haunting battle against her very essence. Hadn't she felt this darkness creeping in her life? The petty arguments, the anger, the betrayals? "You'll have the power you've always desired." The shadow of her mother beckoned, the dark tendrils curling like smoke around her form. "You can change everything." "Change?" Sarah spat, fury igniting in her chest. "Change comes with sacrifice. I want to betray my soul." The shadows reacted violently as she spoke, a guttural roar erupting from the depths. The masked figures shrieked, their chants devolving into chaos. The altar's light surged again, illuminating Sarah's surroundings as if to reveal the horrific truth behind those who had kept her chained to her fate. "Look!" A voice wailed from the shadows. One of the masked figures pointed, trembling. "The sixth figure. It must not be revealed." A pulse of fear rippled through the crowd, and Sarah realized they were pointing at a dark corner, hidden until now. An outline, barely discernible, emerged, a figure standing still, watching her with hollow eye sockets. Could it be one of her ancestors? Or a warning of what she might become? "Do not!" Her mother's shadow spat, moving to shield the figure. "That is a part of you, a truth kept hidden from the world." "Is it?" Sarah's blood ran cold as she peered into the veil of shadows. What lay beneath could unravel everything she had known. An echo of a lost child? A glimpse of the monster waiting within? Just as doubt threatened to tie her in knots, a jolt coursed through her body, a raw, overpowering urge to confront this monstrous legacy. "I will unveil it," she shouted defiantly. "You don't understand." The shadow shrieked while the malicious laughter echoed around her, vibrating the very air. "You are not ready." There was the deep-seated fear of what she might find, of what she could become if she dove deeper into darkness. But just as she felt her heart plunge, the light from the altar surged with undeniable force. It swirled around Sarah and Lily, forming a barrier against the shadows, illuminating the figure still shrouded in darkness. "Light your way, Sarah," whispered Lily, her voice steady as she tightened her grip. "You can do it." With resolve deepening like molten steel, Sarah stepped closer, her heartbeat synchronizing with the pulsing light. The shadows recoiled as she approached the hidden figure, fear swirling around her. What secret would she unearth? What choice lay on the other side? And suddenly, the figure took a step forward, unveiling itself from the darkness. "I am the truth," it rasped, voice hollow yet familiar, sending chills cascading down her spine. As she stood at the precipice of revelation, a piercing scream erupted from the dark, drowning out all reason. "What have you done?" The shadows writhed around them, shrieking in a cacophony that assaulted her senses. And at that moment, Sarah understood the choice was no longer just hers. It involved the very soul of her child. Before she could brace herself, the darkness lunged as if sentient, clawing at her heart. She had to know. But at what cost? Would her discovery save Lily or drag them both into eternal night? The figure stepped from the shadows, skin like fog, features blurred yet eerily familiar. A pulse of recognition shot through Sarah, a twisted reflection of the woman her mother once was. "No," Sarah gasped, eyes locked onto the visage. The truth wasn't just an ancestor. It was a fragmented piece of herself. The darkness radiated an insatiable hunger, eager to consume them whole. "What have you brought forth?" Her mother's echo boomed, a violent wave crashing against Sarah and Lily, knocking them to their knees. The altar flickered perilously, casting twisted shapes in frantic dance around them. "Mommy?" Lily whimpered, clutching the ragged doll tighter, its empty button eyes a haunting reminder of innocence trapped in horror. "Don't look away. Trust me." Sarah's voice reverberated in the thickening air. She fought to maintain her grip on reality, on her daughter. Despite the chaos swirling around her, there was a fierce ember of hope she couldn't extinguish. But the shadows closed in, feeding on her vulnerability. They whispered promises of power and unshackled freedom. With the truth comes strength. You could control it all, just like your mother. "Stay with me," Sarah required, each word pushing back the encroaching dread. She stared into the abyss. The sixth figure moved closer, dragging its unseen past into the present like a haunting specter demanding to be acknowledged. Then, within the din, Sarah's heart lurched as a familiar flicker of resolve rose within her. "You can't have Lily," she cried defiantly, bolstering her stance. The shadow's words clawed at her, but she focused on the pure light that had protected them moments before. "You are not her, and I will not become you." "Fool!" The figure spat, its voice splintering into thousands of hissing whispers. The masks around them clamored in discord, thrumming with chaos, their eyes wide with reflection of their own fears. The darkness lunged, a torrent of shadowy tendrils extending toward Lily. Sarah felt the warmth of her daughter's hands slip as the oppressive force pulled at their connection. She twisted to save her, but it was too late. Darkness gripped Lily's ankles, holding her fast. "Mommy!" Lily's desperate plea sliced through the air, a dagger tugging at Sarah's heartstrings. "No!" Sarah cried, raw desperation flooding her senses. "Fight it, Lily! Remember the light. Remember love." As if shrouded in smoke, Sarah lunged forward, feeling the cold tendrils clawing against her skin. They pulsated, each pull wreaking havoc against her resolve, but she was no longer just fighting for herself. Lily's frightened nod pierced the fog. A flicker of courage ignited in those dark eyes. A shared history of love and resilience began to surface between them. Together, they summoned the memories, flashes of laughter in the sunlight, gentle hugs, and whispered secrets. Weightless moments amidst chaos, all fragments feeding into a blossoming defiance against the shadows that sought to consume them. The light surged back, piercing through the shadows with furious intensity. It brightened the altar, illuminating the sixth figure, blinding the malicious echoes with warmth. It shrieked, recoiling in pain, but Sarah pressed forward, heart pounding, reaching for her daughter. "You are not a part of this darkness. We will break the cycle." In that instant, the shadows quaked violently, a cacophony of screams erupting all around them. They recoiled, desperately fighting against the shining truth cascading from their bond. Yet, just as they were about to reach each other, the world around them twisted anew. The light faltered, fractured by the sudden return of the darkness. The sixth figure loomed, its hollow eye sockets locking onto Sarah. "You don't know the cost of truth. Revel in your choice now, or bear witness to a fate worse than death." Another scream filled the air, and the shadows danced with furious energy, clinging tighter to their prey. So what would Sarah choose? The truth or the lies? Would she risk it all to save her daughter, or was the horror only beginning? The answer lingered in the shadows, a sinister promise waiting to be fulfilled. And then everything shifted once more. With a deafening crack, the shadows writhed as if an unseen hand had shattered their grip. The altar pulsed brighter than ever, light cascading over Sarah and Lily, as if the universe itself declared they had come far enough. The silhouettes of her ancestors shuffled back, retreating as the weight of history began to break under the weight of recognition. "Mommy, I'm scared," Lily whimpered, her small voice breaking through the chaos. Her daughter's poignant plea sent shivers racing down Sarah's spine, igniting an indomitable spark in her heart. "I know, sweetheart, but we're going to break free," Sarah shouted, unyielding resolve bubbling up within her. She gripped Lily's hand tighter, their bond pulsing with defiance against the encroaching darkness. With one determined step, Sarah advanced toward the altar, unleashing a wave of radiant energy that burst forth like a tsunami, obliterating the shadows clinging around them. The light engulfed her, each fiber of her being thrumming with newfound power, a culmination of every memory, all the love, sacrifice, and pain woven together. As she focused, the figure of her mother flickered before her, twisted, trapped within a shroud of regret and dark history. "You don't understand," the specter wailed, the hollow echo of a broken promise. "You'll never escape this legacy." "I don't need to escape it," Sarah retorted boldly, heart swelling with purpose. "I will embrace it to save my daughter." She reached for the spectral form, recognizing the woman she once loved, intertwined with the shadows of her lineage. "Your darkness won't claim me. I reject it, and I reject you." The darkness screeched as it recoiled from the surge of truth and acceptance. Figures emerged from the shadows, faces of her ancestors, no longer sinister, but pleading for liberation from the very chains that bound them. They had become victims of their secrets, lost in the past, but now stood with her, their ethereal forms guiding Sarah's will. "Join us." Their collective voices soared, resonating with hope and determination. As one, they stepped forward, merging into the radiant light that surrounded Sarah and Lily, finally breaking free from the grasp of despair. Sarah's heart thudded with warmth, the feeling wrapping around them, coursing through her veins. This was the power of lineage, the strength that sprung from battles fought and won. The darkness screamed in defiance, swirling in chaotic tendrils, desperately trying to reclaim its hold. But it was too late. "Lily, hold on tight," Sarah yelled, and with a fierce strength, she thrust their intertwined hands into the light. A powerful shockwave erupted in response, the air shimmering with raw potential as the darkness buckled under the onslaught. "Face these shadows. We are not alone," they chanted together, sending ripples through the very fabric of time and history, intertwining with hope, light, and laughter. Their triumph resonated as a brilliant, pure light exploded from the altar, a cataclysmic release washing over them, obliterating the darkness, swallowing it whole. In that blinding moment, everything shifted. The tendrils of shadow recoiled, releasing their grip on Sarah and Lily. The figure of Sarah's mother faded slowly, the remnants of darkness dissolving into whispers of gratitude and regret, a final farewell woven into the light. In the wake of the eruption, silence settled. Sarah and Lily stood in a clearing, the glow settling gently around them like a warm embrace. There were no figures, no shadows, just the faintest whisper of what had once been, a memory drifting away with the wind. "Mommy?" Lily murmured, her voice thick with awe. "We did it, sweetie," Sarah replied, her body trembling with both exhaustion and elation. "We uncovered the truth. We faced it together." They clung to each other, two souls tethered by love that had transcended generational curse and fear. The woods no longer loomed menacing. They felt alive, full of possibility, free to share stories not of sorrow, but of resilience. As the sun began to rise, spilling golden light across the treetops, they forged a path back home. The world felt different, lighter, filled with the promise of brighter tomorrows and the laughter of generations yet to be born free from the shadows. Standing outside their apartment, Sarah looked to the trees that had once whispered threats. Now they sang of hope. "You're safe now, Lily." And as they stepped inside, Sarah felt lighter. The truth might have been a heavy burden, but it was a necessary path to forge. She had broken the cycle. They had emerged victorious, together, with a final whisper of gratitude to the light that guided them. They took their first steps into a new beginning, a promise echoing in their hearts. They would rewrite their story. This was not the end, but the start of a brighter chapter. Now, if you've enjoyed this thrilling conclusion, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Don't wait even one more second. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Let us hear your take. And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.